Hey Stefan, how are you doing?
Hey Adam, I'm doing great.
By the way, it's Stefan, right? Stefan is correct.
Correct, yeah, it's
Stefan.
Stefan with a PH and one
Stefan.
A.
Yeah.
So it's short notation. Yeah, no,
And your
it's
hoodie, you have a nice hoodie. What is it?
Devoxx Ukraine.
Ah, great.
I always try to support them in some ways over the other. So yeah, but
Perfect.
crazy times. Seriously, Adam. I think we are experiencing a revolution in programming,
Yeah.
but serious, disruptive. I went to there was a wedding party last weekend, and at that party, it was actually a guy from the program committee from Devoxx
Mm-hmm.
Belgium who invited all the Devoxx members, and they had this application where you could scan a QR code, take pictures during the party, and the pictures would show up on the screen, and afterwards people could actually download all the pictures. A bit like what we used to do with Twitter and the Twitter wall at Devoxx.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at our website; it wasn't too expensive, and that was Saturday night. And then I said, you know what? I'll try to redevelop it, but just using AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I just released the beta version just 15 minutes ago, fully working, PWA, Angular, Firebase, nicely designed, and I didn't do any coding at all.
Mm-hmm.
I only was programming in the English language.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, in 18 hours, that just blew my mind. And the code is beautiful. I could never write it myself,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Like, with observables and all of that. I mean, it's just too complicated for me with the RX, the JS stuff and so on.
Yeah, because you use Angular, no? Without
Yeah,
Angular, you don't
well,
need AI.
it could have been React, or it could have
Just
been
kidding.
JavaFX,
Yeah.
whatever I've chosen. I mean, I basically said, write this application, and I define the specifications and write it using Angular, write it with Firebase backends. It has to be PWA. And I mean, I did probably do about 30 different chat prompts. And that basically created, like, iteratively, it created code. And then I said, no, you should do it like that. I was like feeling like a project leader, where I'm telling the senior guys, hey, you have to do this because this is the customer specification. You have to do this, you have to do that. Now change it to this. And the model basically is the developer, a senior expert developer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the big change, what happened is that you can't do that with ChatGPT 4.0.
Mm-hmm.
The new disruptive model is Claude.
Sonnet.
Yeah, Sonnet 3.5 from Anthropic.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a new level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call this, I've actually coined a new word called AAP, which stands for AI-augmented programming,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what's happening.
You use the artifact in Sonnet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I used two things, and that was one of the reasons why I reached out to you, is that last year during the opening keynote of Devoxx Belgium, I invited IntelliJ to talk about their AI assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually asked Anton, who did the keynote, are you guys going to support local models? Are you guys going to support different models? And he was basically walking around the answer, and well, the answer basically was no, they are not supporting that.
Mm-hmm.
So after a couple of months, I said, like, okay, well, if AI assistant won't do it, I'll just develop my own plugin.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed an IntelliJ plugin called Devoxx Genie,
Mm-hmm.
which is, it's open source, it's free, you can download it. It's 100% in Java. It uses LangChain4j, which also got introduced at Devoxx Belgium last year. So fully Java written plugin. And it allows you to work with local models using Ollama, LM Studio, Yan, and GPT-4All. But it also allows you to work with cloud models or remote models like Anthropic, Gemini from Google, OpenAI, Deep Infra, and so on. So basically all the ones that I tend to use. Now, the problem we have today with Sonnet and Claude and the artifacts is that you have a limited number of messages that you can send, or they actually count the tokens, the number of tokens that you can send during a specific time. And once you've reached that limit, you have to wait like another 6 hours. But as a developer, if you're in the flow, you just don't want to wait 6 hours.
Yeah.
So what I did is a combination of artifacts, because the artifact UI works really well in the web, But if I'm at the limit, I switch to my plugin and I just use Anthropic using the API key within IntelliJ. Now the key, and this is the differentiator. And Anthropic has a maximum window token of 200,000 tokens.
Mm-hmm.
The project I just made is 16,000 tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So it fits nicely in that window context. The Devoxx Genie plugin is 70,000 tokens. So it also fits nicely in that window context. So what I've done with the plugin is that you can right-click on your project and just say, add project to window context.
Mm-hmm.
What it does, it basically goes recursively through your directory, gets all the files, and you can, in the settings of the plugin, you can say, no, exclude the build directory, exclude the distribution directory, exclude certain file types. And it so basically creates a full file structure, including the real file structure to give a context to the prompt. And it uses that information to then answer questions. Now, the nice thing, I've been talking about RAG, retrieval augmented generation, for quite a while now as well, because I was trying to do another use case. But that basically is not needed anymore. I don't have to do RAG where I just take certain portions of code. I just take the full project.
Mm-hmm.
16K of tokens, just a fraction. And because of the full context, you can just say, okay, I have this bug, or I want to have this feature. You just write it in English and it writes that feature almost without any bugs, almost without any errors. And it's just like, okay, so I feel we are like in this quantum superposition state where it's both exciting and frightening at the same time. And I mean, seriously, this is like a new era. Mm-hmm. This is a new phase of development.
I'm using I use the Sonnet Opus. The largest one is Opus 4 from the beginning. It was not available in Europe, so I used that from US. So it was a little bit slow, but it was already powerful. And Sonnet 3.5 is a bit smarter and a lot faster. So it is a lot faster than 4
and cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah. But interestingly, I use the Opus all the time, but not uploading project right now. I actually worked with smaller context windows, but it was never expensive, let's say, right? So if you will submit the entire project is a difference. But I also experimented with it. What I did at the beginning, I used one of my projects and just created a huge string with all the files, just concatenated the files. And then could ask questions about, the files, and it even worked. So I just used the delimiters of very primitive stuff, not like separate messages, just one string. It was already great. So I use also, Codium, for instance. In Visual Studio Code.
Many plugins out there.
Yeah, because it was speedier than Copilot. So I just was interesting, how it works. And I use the AI as an inspiration. It works great. Sonnet is the best, I would say, so far.
Yes, it is. But the 3.5 it is, yes.
Yeah, 3.5 or the 4 was also okay, I would say. The Opus was...
Yeah. Well, but Sonnet 3.5 actually has passed.
But a bit, not like a huge amount, but it was like a few percent better than the. So I'm interested what happens now with 3.5 Opus after Sonnet.
Yeah. That's just gonna be
unbelievable. But my observation is, if I spend all my time with Java, and I actually can write whatever I like, and if I have to look it up, I can just go to Javadoc or to AI. It doesn't matter. So I see how I try to understand, and I use AI a lot for stuff where I know the outcome. You say, okay, write me this. I look at this, and in most cases, it's okay. So in Java, sometimes the code is old, so it means it doesn't generate Java 21. So it generates older 17. It's hard to predict what it generates, but it mostly works. And so what's my take on it is, as long as we generate source code, we have the problem of maintainability. Because, if you have to decide. So what I think, what could happen is that if we only save the prompts, not the source code, we checked in the prompts to GitHub, and from the prompts, it generates the app, then problem solved. But the mix mode is problematic. So either you will have to, understand the code base, what was generated, so you have to refine it, or you will have to, and you have to understand the prompt. So both at the same time is a bit problematic. But I think if the source code disappears, it
Adam,
could generate bytecode.
It's like DevOps, but then prompt ops.
Yeah. But I would say not the difference to me, because how to call it? The Java code is already lean, right? And it can generate more of it, of course. But the problem is the maintainability. So, I let him generate, I refine. So, okay, just make it that I understand what happened and do it again. And I think if it works well enough, we will have to think how to test the thing, right? Because the problem is your prompt. You have to be as exact as you programmed, or at least refine. So this is a little bit problematic.
Well, it's a bit like project leaders or project managers, where they need to get the specifications from the customers as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have the spec for the application and it's really, really clear, that's your basis, that's your context to then start prompting, because you need to tell it what it needs to generate.
The problem is it's never clear. It was never clear in my projects, and now I'm in some projects where we have somehow specs which are old and should be clear, but they are still unclear. Yeah, open issues. I would say the problem I have with it is that, let's say I don't code. I just write prompts. This is like back to UML. You remember UML, message-driven architectures? Yeah. So we just draw the pictures and it generates the application. I had a hard time to think exactly in UML. Mm-hmm. I thought, I'm not capable of just drawing a class diagram and exactly imagine what is the impact on the source code. So if I sit down and wrote some code, I knew, okay, I was forced to think differently. I was in different mode and more exactly. Mm-hmm. And with the prompt is similar. So if you writing an application for yourself, I think this is the way to go, right? Because you can say, okay, cool, I never thought about that. Cool idea, go for it. For a client, it's a little bit harder because, but future is future. We have to use it. I'm just saying, I'm curious whether it is as revolutionary or we just twice as fast and you have to think more. We are more productive, twice as productive, but the job becomes harder because you have to be an expert, to understand the impact of the generation.
Yeah, but they've been talking about the full stack developer and the 10 times developer, but like the full stack developer, what does that mean? That means you know a bit of everything, but you're not an expert in any specific vertical. Mm-hmm. Now with AI, I'm really not an expert in TypeScript. So with AI, I have like these expert partners now that will help me and explain and produce beautiful code. Mm-hmm. And if I don't understand it, I can say like, explain it to me, and it will just explain all the different sexy RxJS methods that they use. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago, that wasn't possible.
Sure.
And so I think we were just, this is science fiction that we are living in. Seriously, come on. I'm talking to a program that explains and writes programs for me, which 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, was not possible. Or I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime, and it has. And we're just at the beginning. This model is the worst that it will be. It will only improve.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with GPT-5 if they're going to release it later this year or beginning next year?
If they managed to improve.
Yeah, that's the big question, of course, have we plateaued?
Yeah, exactly.
Or not?
Yeah, because they don't have enough data to train, so they already try to scan YouTube and stuff to get Absolutely. More data and generate the data. So it's interesting what happens. And even what can also happen, like apocalyptic scenario, because lots of people are generating not that interesting stuff with AI. And if the AI consumes AI, the quality will degrade. So the next challenge would be in internet, that the AI robots not reading already AI generated stuff, because this is like, abstraction of abstraction and everything gets worse.
Yeah, synthetic data, they call it. But you're definitely right. I think OpenAI has a deal now with Reddit. Mm-hmm. And you go like, okay, what garbage is going to come out of indexing the whole of Reddit? Mm-hmm. So you definitely have a point there. But it's just... for me, it lowers the bar to become a developer. I really see, I follow Reddit a lot, and there's like people who, or even on Twitter, people that are tweeting, hey, I made this application. I'm not a developer, but I made this game just using prompts. So the entrance for junior or not even developers, for people who would like to be creative, are now able to create without being a senior developer.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for our profession. Sure, you can definitely discuss, but yeah, if they deploy it, who's going to maintain it and blah, blah, blah. Sure, right. But I mean, if there's a bug or there's a feature request, I can really just write a prompt and say like, hey, this is the project. I want this new thing to be. It's like refactoring on steroids.
Okay, but you have to know to ask the right question.
Yes.
The right ask question. This is the challenge. And I give you, I can only give you an example about the cloud, but because now I spend 100% of my time in the cloud. And the problem is, of course, so I say generate something, but I have to rely, that all the permissions are correctly set.
Yes.
So it cannot just use asterisk, but it does. For instance, right? So I several times I was curious, and it was never right. For instance, the permission model. Also, all the IAM permission policies and so forth are in the internet for years. Everything is open, so I would expect to work better. But if you're not careful, it is not secure. So this is the next thing. The next thing is to know which service to pick for the cost structure.
Yeah.
There are 300 services, so you will have to explain, okay, it's an enterprise application with peaks a day and nothing happens at night, pick the right service. And if you all know already which questions to ask, then you are pretty far, but junior has a problem with it.
Yeah, I fully agree.
So I'm in a project right now I explain everything, there are some junior developers, and they had a really hard time, they're still afraid of the cost. They don't know. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever, like it will cost you $2, right? And this is really hard to explain. So I think for juniors is really problematic. For seniors is the best thing, because you can very easy, play with it. And if you get something back, you have to be able to judge it. Is it right or not? Right?
Yeah,
if you say yes,
I fully agree.
Yeah. So it should be like, yes, no programming. You need a keyboard with yes and no and prompt. So like, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then you are done.
But I fully agree. I mean, you see, like it creates something. They say, no, shouldn't you use this pattern or this approach? And it goes out, and then it replies, yeah, you're absolutely right. I will redo it. And I fully agree. I mean, if you don't have that expertise. But this is now if this is going to be, if we're on an exponential curve and this will only get better and better, it might be where you say like, hey, review this project for any security flaws, or review this project and improve the design, and it will just do that. But it's...
Yeah, but if you review the project, you got to know the other outcome, and this could break the other prompt. The challenge would be, to have all the assets in one project.
Yeah.
So maybe you will have the folder with security prompts, another folder, and all the folders will comprise your project.
Yeah.
And you can walk through. But, to having this structure, we are not far away of enterprise architects 10 years away with UML.
Yeah. But the thing is, as a developer, we are working on a higher abstraction level.
Yeah, this is for sure.
Which is the English language.
Yeah. And I think that what could happen is that the cloud provider or platform provider, whatever we call them, they will support prompts. This will change the game, right? Because then you can write a prompt to the cloud and they will generate the app, but they will take the responsibility about the security. That's the point. This is the difference. But if I have to care about it, I have to review lots of code, and then you have to be expert, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, and you're already seeing that. Even like generate me a PowerPoint presentation, and it does all the guardrailing, but also the sophisticated exotic prompts that it adds to the mix to make it a beautiful end product. And that could definitely be how it's going to evolve. But that means that we're moving away as being developers, especially if it's like a customer project. Well, one, it needs to fit a certain context, but like with Gemini, they already have a 1 million token context. So this is just going to evolve and get bigger anyway. But you still need senior people who at least know and can evaluate it for sure. But I mean, it's just scary. I mean, the paper "Attention is All You Need" came out in 2017. Yeah. I mean, and 7 years later, just look where we are. What's going to happen in 3, 5, 10 years?
I enjoy it. So I use all the models which are available right now. I really enjoy it. But I think it is not as going to be as revolutionary. I think it is going to be maybe more interesting and harder for us, and really hard for junior developers.
Yeah.
Because the junior developers will be able to create applications really fast with zero understanding what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And, so it will mean that they will have to completely trust the AI. And then the question is why we need junior developers at all. And if there are no juniors, who become the senior, right? Because there will be no one will start with programming and no one will understand what generates. So it could be a kind of a crisis even.
And it's already happening. People are really like students who need to make a decision of their career are already asking, like, is there still a future in development, in programming? It's a valid question to ask. But then I see so many different apps appearing from people who've never developed and they are creating. So it is really about, do you want to be a creator? Do you want to create your ideas and really solidify them so it becomes an application or a website or whatever? And I think just lowering that bar to be creative in a digital world is a plus for everybody.
It's really hard. I know. I'm just thinking, about my concrete projects right now. And let's say we go a step further. You don't have to write a prompt. You can imagine an application, you or I, we can imagine an application and it immediately happens. Even in this case, if you think about this, if you will play with the application, in the next 2 minutes, you say, I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
because you say, okay, I've completely overlooked this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
So, and then you have to come back and reimagine it differently. That's the problem. So for me, the LLMs is more like code generators on steroids. So we had with MDA, but they really work. MDA was just, we could generate the plumbing, which no one cared about. And now we can generate something which is valuable. So there's the difference. And a generator is the problem that you have to have. It is like, we have a small prompt and it generates a lot, which was already there. So it can generate CRUD very well because it learned in internet and so forth. The more specific the application gets, the more iteration you will need, or more too longer you will have to have the prompt, right?
Yes.
And so recently I was in a project. I asked, which metrics do we have, to provide? And the metrics were very, very client specific. I would never think about such a thing. So it were like really business metrics. So I also thought in this brief moment, how I would explain it, to the AI, do this, because the application is already done. And maybe, it was generated with Firebase, but for the metrics, I would need Cassandra.
Yeah.
So what now? This is really interesting. And I still think it is doable, but you will have to bridge several systems like a microservices. You can have one AI generated this, you need a bridge to another one. And the maintainability is interesting, or data migration. Of course, you can migrate data from Firebase out to somewhere else. But let's say you are on AWS, you have to know that egress is expensive. And and to consider everything, it is hard. But I'm with you. It is a revolution.
Well, I mean, I was like really a big enthusiast of JHipster. I don't know if you know JHipster, but it basically allows you to create an entity model, which is a bit like your class model in UML, where you create your entities, and based on that entity, it would generate the CRUD applications using whatever front end you've chosen, using whatever database, etc. And so that way you could really fastly create a prototype to basically sanitize your ideas and then change the model again and regenerate. Well, this is like the next version of that, is that I can still do a class diagram or an entity model and even feed that in the prompt and say like, hey, this is the relationships I want to actually create upon. And, within a couple of hours, you have a working application that you can already validate. Now, these are smaller applications, like the Photos app I've just developed. It's 16K, that's not a lot. If you look at the CFP, I think it's 320,000 tokens. So it's also like a force to go towards microservices, where you really create a project small enough so the AI can actually comprehend the full project. If you have a big legacy application, it could be that it's above and beyond the window context.
Yeah, but this will also change. I mean, this is this is just a matter of brute force, and I think we will get solution there. Yeah. And so I give you some examples of what I think it is a great, what we can use right now. And in one project, we had an interested product owner or product manager. And they had a kind of customizations they did in the previous product. And we're migrating this now to serverless Java. And it is always, a friction. He had something in mind, and the developers has to develop this. And there was an interpreter and lots of stuff. So I said, what if, we implement what is possible in Java interfaces, and we just copy the source code of the Java interfaces in a prompt, and the PM can write, I would like to have customization this and this and this, and it will generate a Java class which implement the interfaces and write a unit test. Mm-hmm. And now the prompt from the PO becomes Javadoc in our code. Mm-hmm. So the cool story is now the developer sees the code ownership. It says, okay, this is like this, can improve the code, the unit test is running. If it doesn't work, next iteration, the prompt, and we can work very closely with business people, and generate a huge amount, of state machines, fraud detection. This is what I'm working right now. And this works perfectly because we are accountable for the code, but it's not a lot. It's not like the entire application is generated, because we have already applications. No of my clients will just regenerate everything with AI. They call me crazy. But what we can do is we can replace problematic parts with AI-generated parts, right?
Yeah.
And another interesting part are state machines or rules. Mm-hmm. There was in a project with a production line, and sometimes, it didn't work well. And the question is, what you can do about that. And it's okay, you can put all the parameters we know to AI, and maybe a suggestion will work well or not. It's just a hint to the people on the line, for instance. Also worked surprisingly well. And it will work worse with our own rule engines, because sometimes there is no outcome and hard to debug. Mm-hmm. So I think this is the middle thing. And another project which was interesting was the opposite. The database was huge, it was already there. We had the APIs. And then we put the APIs, we give the APIs to the AI and say, okay, generate front end. Mm-hmm. And the cool story is, regardless what the AI generates, no one cares, It's just throw away UI. So it could, and this is perfect, because after 10 minutes, you had a front end, and everyone knew if it doesn't work, we just throw it away. And they already knew what should come out, because it's easy to test. The API gave us the data, which in raw format. And we just saw it does it appear on the screen as well in the same numbers. If it is, it is okay. Yeah, so I would say maybe it will be the separation. What happens right now? The domain object. What we had the conversation. It is valuable. So there will be a hybrid generated, with AI help, and maybe UI you could always generate with AI, because no one cares.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things. So on the rules engine, Mario Fusco. Mm-hmm. He works on rules. He's actually looking into, integrating mm-hmm. AI in mm-hmm. the rule engine, where you basically give the parameters mm-hmm. and the AI will know what to do with it, which makes perfect sense. Yeah. You basically fit some intelligence in the different steps. Mm-hmm. But the other thing which I find interesting is that I think it was 18 months ago or so, I tried to generate the perfect schedule for Devoxx Belgium based on...
And you generate Python. You mentioned it, right?
I used, yes. But I want to, yes. And that worked, of course. But I wanted to have the LLM just do it without code and actually tell me, hey, this is the perfect schedule based on the constraints that I'm giving it. Today I'm using TimeFold, which is an open source project, which was previously known as Optaplanner.
Okay.
And so 18 months ago, GPT 3.5 and 4 were unable to do this. So last week I thought I should try it with Sonnet 4.5. And it was a one-day event. I think it was 4 rooms. And the constraint was, don't have the same talks from the same track at the same time slot. That was the only constraint. And it was unable to do that still. So it's still not smart enough, because it's basically a next token on steroids. It's still not smart enough to actually, and I tried multiple prompts. I really tried hard to get the perfect one-day schedule. It was unable to do so. So it's still not smarter than us for now, at least on certain levels. It's still lacking on certain levels.
So conference organizers have bright future still, right? Cannot be replaced by AI.
Well, I'm using Timefold, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's already replacing me anyway, right?
Yeah.
But it does, and so I'm trying this out every time there's a new version to see if we have reached that level. According to Geoffrey, he says like, no, this will never be possible because you have to do so many different iterations that it's going to be very hard to just do it with a one-shot prompt, which he's probably right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting, nevertheless, to have like this reference point to see if it's still already smart or not.
Mm-hmm. I'm also excited as you to AI, but I'm more, I'm more curious how the clients and enterprise companies will adapt. This is the interesting part, how to work with them and how to extend existing applications, what you can use right now. And this is what's interests me. And if I would build applications from scratch, interests me, what is the quality of the code, which is get higher and higher, I have to say, because they are reading more and more newer stuff, right? Because if the cutout of the first GPT was 3 years ago, they only saw Stack Overflow, and Stack Overflow had Java from the Second War, old code, and this was the problem. And now the code gets newer and newer, so it gets back. This will work. And the next step is why we need source code at all? Why it doesn't generate bytecode then? Because who cares about source code if I just say what to do and I look at the result and not at the source code? This will be the next step.
Well, that's what I was thinking about. I've read an article of, maybe we discussed it before, the language translators.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like if you go from English to German and back, the Google system actually created internally its own language, which was more easier to be translated. And it's like this Esperanto kind of talk or code. So
maybe and truffle. So inside,
Yeah,
they have like a meta language where they can truffle, I think it's called, where you can call from Python to Java and it goes through the middle layer.
Yeah, well, but it's like you said, why create bytecode? Why not go immediately to assembly?
Yeah.
And because it will just go to the most performant and optimized code, and we don't see it anyway. So it's. I mean, serious. But this discussion, if we would have played this discussion 3 years ago, we'd go like, are you guys on alcohol or what? Or are you drunk or what? I mean, it's just going so fast that it's just scary as well. Like,
but I think it will stop because the data is limited. So I think it will stop. We'll see what happens. Whether the GPT 5.0 will be way better than Sonnet 3.5. So I'm curious. Yeah. So how far can it go? And what's more interesting is the what they do with the models internally is, I would say, it is not that complicated, right? And the scientists are amazed that it works like it works. This is actually even more exciting when we talk about that with brute force. It's just brute force, internet scanning and learning. It is a kind of intelligent. I would say that some people believe is really intelligent, others say no, but it is a kind of intelligent. So it is a very useful. So. I remember RDF, Resource Description Framework. It was like 2003. This was the attempt to have to categorize stuff with semantic meaning. So it's like if this is the entity queen and king, then and they have a child, then you can reason following the graph. It was called RDF, and everyone assumed back then this is the AI. If we capture everything with semantic meaning, then maybe something smart will come out. And what happened is brute force, right? So there is no semantics. It's just learning on huge amount of data, neural network from 1960s, and with the transformer architecture, and we have something semi intelligent, which even more amazing. We can pick Sonnet 3.5 for coding or for cooking, right? So this is exactly the same model, and this is and works for everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And I mean, the brain power that it now has, so many developers, PhDers and so on are working on this, that eventually there's going to be, breakthroughs and new, because some say it needs an extra breakthrough to really become AGI. And I mean, OpenAI has hinted on Q-star, which is like this optimized planning. to take the best route possible instead of doing brute force, because that's what they did with chess as well, right? In the beginning,
Yeah.
they just basically did all the possible moves as deep as they could go.
Mm-hmm.
But then, with DeepMind, they were doing it a bit smarter. And eventually we're going to see breakthroughs on that level as well, which will hopefully take us to the next level again.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy times. I'm so glad to be alive, because it's really exciting, and like I said, and frightening as well at the same time. But good stuff. Really, really interesting.
Back to Java. This is really interesting. What happens? You're already in touch with Alfonso, I guess, right? Alfonso Patterson.
No.
Yes, you are. It was I think will speak at Devoxx, Belgium.
Which company?
What he did, Oracle. He did JLama.
Oh yeah.
Llama 3. No, he did Llama 3, and Jake from Cassandra did JLama. Right.
Yes. So
now back to Java,
because Devoxx Belgium.
But I have to inform you, because you are more a Python developer and TypeScript. So what happens in Java, Stefan?
Well, I stopped Python, to be honest, because now that we have these Java wrappers around the REST API, we can just use Java. So I did stop with Python.
So cool, because what we can do with Java is really exciting to me, again, because, if, let's say on my client side, I have to have a pipeline, cloud, whatever, right? I have to install Python, Java talks to Python. I don't know how many Docker containers I have to install in the pipeline, and I will spend, days just to make it work. I'm absolutely zero interested in such a stuff, because I don't know if they remember, you were an enterprise consultant. So at the beginning of Java 2000s, there were insurances, banks who would like to have Java, and the problem they had COBOL, C, whatever, and we have to talk to COBOL via JNI, and there were always problem, memory leaks, concurrency, whatever. And the same stuff happens with LLMs as well right now, except they are in pure Java, because they don't have to be pure Java, but you can integrate them directly. And what happened in Java is there is one project called llama3.java. It's just a single Java file. And you can even run it without compiling Java. You say Java, and it just runs.
Yeah.
And what they did is the Llama 3 model from Meta became a standard kind of Hibernate or JPA, if you will, for all other models. So this is exciting news. So it means the Llama 3 model ships in a format GGUF or something like this. How it's called, GG, there's a specific AI format. And this AI format has a metadata section where it says, I use this tokenizer, I use,
GGUF. GGUF.
GGUF, exactly. And and the Alfonso from his project, Mukel, is on GitHub, Mukel. He used Java 21 plain without any external libraries, and Java Vector API, which is in preview, and directly loaded the model to Java. Not directly loaded. It was a memory map file, so not even loaded. It make it parsable, and it could access that. And the cool story is, right now it is 10-20% slower than C, because C, for smaller models, they could do some optimizations which were not done in Java. And what it means is, we can have LangChain for J. Let's say Quarkus is this what I use everywhere. Mm-hmm. Now with Llama small model in pure Java, and then we can create one jar with everything and run it. Yeah. This is my breakthrough, because now I can use in most projects, like say already, fraud detection or parameter validation, or some data conversion. So I can use it directly, and I can package it, run it on Lambda, run it on Docker container without any effort. And now Java is, in the first row, I had a chat with Alfonso, and he told me there is no other language. He's not aware that they can parse directly this GGUF. So there's the first parser in Java. And now it comes. Yeah. Llama 3, no one is interested in Llama 3 in enterprise because it's Facebook with strange licensing. But Llama, Mistral, and all the others are almost identical. So what he is able, he can load any newer model, which is Llama compatible, directly to Java. So this is exciting. And then next front, Jake from Cassandra, I think he will also speak on Devoxx. Is CFP actually closed?
It's still open till Friday.
Oh, then I
So,
have maybe I will also submit something.
yeah, you should talk about what you just mentioned because that's interesting. Because Jake is going to be actually he's going to do a walk on during the keynote to talk about what he's done with the vector, the J vector, and the J llama combination. So because that's really, as you said,
do you think it would be interesting, like so enterprise AI, what he talk right now, you can have Bedrock, you can have Direct. So they so from okay, then I would submit this because
please do. I mean, the most submitted tracks are development and AI or Gen AI.
So I don't like to be the next one, right? But I think it's interesting from I show some code, I have some working examples, but different options how to integrate AI for the enterprise. What's counts in Europe and stuff like that. Okay, cool. So to Friday. Thank you. Yeah. So you have a nice effects here. This is all AI generated. I will on my machine, my Raspberry Pi, I will have to to power up to more machines here.
But that's the beauty is that, I mean, I have like this tunnel vision where I don't really have customers. The customer is me because I'm writing applications for Devoxx, which I'm both the developer and the customer. So I have a bit of a tunnel vision how I use these things. But from an enterprise point of view, it would be very interesting to hear how you've actually introduced it for real customers and etc. So would make a very interesting talk for sure.
Cool. So I will submit it. Very good. This is good we talk. And because these LLMs, everyone talks about that. But they talk about different things. But interesting. Okay. Yeah. And so what we said right now, we can directly load models to Java, and Java works on many things right now. There's Project Valhalla.
Yeah.
And what they try to do, introduce data types. They are not float 32, rather than float 16 and maybe 8. And this is important for things called quantization.
Exactly.
So you also know about it, but I know the listeners know.
It's even stranger in the fact you can even push it further. It's called
1 bit.
Yeah, 1 bit, bitnets.
Yeah.
The beauty, because I actually did a talk on RAG and where I talk about embedding and quantization. And you see this trend where they just use 0 and 1. And it's still, if you have a large enough model, it's still very, very good in responses, but it's like a fraction of the size and memory footprint. That's definitely also something which is happening. And another thing last week was that there are actually, it's a MatMule of MuleMat, where they are excluding the matrix multiplications and finding another way around it, so it's even faster and it doesn't need a GPU anymore. So there's so many new initiatives and research happening that this is just going to be
back to thing. So we had a chat on the matrix multiplication. So with the Java Vector API, you can run the multiplications in Vector API, SIMD operations on the CPU.
Yeah.
Now with Tornado VM, you could run them potentially on GPU with Java, pure Java. This is the cool story. And now it comes because there is shortage of GPUs. The Vector API could actually take off because you can save money in the cloud and run more workloads on the CPUs. So I would say what I'm also very excited if the Java developers recognize that we are actually the golden era for Java development and AI. Because most enterprise projects are still Java, and they would like to integrate AI, but they don't know how. But it is really easy. You showed this, with your IntelliJ plugin. I also played with it, so you can have AI on different levels. Oh, and about the future of AI, what I think will happen is Sonnet 4 and Sonnet 5 will maybe happen, but I'm not really interested in it. What we will need is more specialized models. Like one model, IntelliJ model, but he doesn't know nothing about history of of Jesus or whatever.
Well,
so
Apple,
this is just
Apple is doing that with their Apple Intelligence.
Yeah,
they basically have adapters where it's very narrow focused AI models, which are, for example, just good at Grammarly type of features, or just good at just creating emoticons, etc.
But I think this will have to happen. Because this is completely wrong, to use Sonnet 3.5, let's say, for input validation. So you're launching a huge thing for nothing. So it is completely wrong on all levels. Yes. And if you would have, a narrow model, it would also, at least my expectation, hallucinate less because it cannot misinterpret the parameter as, I don't know what, a historic date or something like this, right?
Yeah, well, it will be specialized in specific areas,
Yes.
and it definitely is a trend, and that's also the way they can then run it on device,
Exactly.
like iPhones, etc.
And running on device will happen because I think, because many developers are rebels. They say, I don't care, no, I don't like to be depending on AWS, Azure, whatever. I would like to be independent. So open source is a huge push right now. And I forgot the name. There's like special hardware where this is more like the ASICs for AI. There are a company on the horizon which will try, to execute the models directly on hardware and no more on GPUs.
It's called Grok, GR.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're bleeding fast, but it seems that those processors are very expensive.
Yeah.
For the time being.
Yeah.
But it's unbelievable fast in inference when you basically are prompting it. Yeah. But also coming back to Java, Adam, Babylon is also very interesting to see together with the Vector API. To just run it on the GPU using Java. So
Babylon is great, but I hope Oracle managers know what they have. Because I speak with developers and explain, hey, Paul Sanders, like, what do you have? You don't even know. It's unbelievable what they're doing here, right? So hopefully his boss also recognizes what happens there, because it's a huge asset. The same what Alfonso did, this is unique. Just load Llama or Mistral, which is a French model, directly to Java and execute it without anything. This is crazy. But this is what I'm afraid we have to promote the developers more so that they get more funding and more time to develop the stuff at Oracle, for instance.
Well, often this is grassroots movement where it's bottom up. The developers, they go to conference like Devoxx, they learn things and so on, and they start gradually introducing.
Yeah, your job is now to promote the thing, You do a great job.
Well,
you do great job. So.
Oh, okay, great, thanks. Yeah, but that's absolutely. I mean, for me, it's where my enthusiasm is, and where I like to learn new things, and I like to share that. And Devoxx, of course, a great platform to do that. So I invite quite a lot of people who are really in, like Jacob, etc., to just come over. Even I think the last podcast we did on Tornado, I then reached out to the Tornado guys, and they did speak at Devoxx Belgium last year. So yeah.
And they also about to create a startup, so let's see how this is going.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's so many opportunities out there. It's just unbelievable.
So for Java developers, golden time now. So again,
I think for any developer, for any kind of developer.
Yeah, but Java particularly, because what I heard multiple times, Java is not good in the clouds. It's like not really true. Actually, absolutely untrue. And Java is not good for AI, also not true. You can, train the models maybe, but I don't think it is still necessary, because if you pick an LLM, it's good enough. Maybe in some rare cases you can fine tune it, but usually it is good enough if you just pick it, and do some rec or whatever. Back to your plugin. I'm interested what you did. So I took a look at the source code. So what you did exactly, and how long did it take? Your Devoxx, how it's called, Genie.
Yeah, well, so I had Genie first. So there's two projects I did. First was that I had developed a chatbot in the CFP, so you could ask questions on the CFP, but it was only for the admin and the program members.
Okay.
And I actually, when I asked the question, like, how many talks did Brian Getz give? The answer was 2. And it was wrong because he gave 4 talks. And so because of that, I started debugging why this went wrong. And I developed a prototype which is called Genie, which I open sourced, which allows you to debug the full RAG lifecycle. And there I learned quite a few things. One was like the embedding, where the embedding also has a certain context and a limitation of how much you can give it. The splitting strategy is really important. I mean, how do you chunk context if you're doing RAG?
Another project from you, BM25, right?
Yeah, BM25. Well, basically I gave an existing Python library and asked an LLM, hey, create a Java version.
This is cool.
Yeah, and then just donated it back, and LangChain4j is looking into that to use that as the default one instead of the Cohere one, which you have to pay for. But even the Cohere API, I used that in the Genie to see if it would work with the chat model of
I have
Cohere.
to interrupt you very quickly, and you proceed, because what I had to do is I had to migrate Python to Java as well, but I did it by hand. So I read the first time, was forced to understand Python. And then I read the code and wrote Java 21 lean code. And the cool story was Java was shorter.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because the Python played, I think, with dictionaries, whatever. With Java, I say multi-line strings, formatted down, then it was shorter. Then I said, okay, but there were no exceptions. I said, okay, the one exception, so I can make it a little bit nicer. And with nicer, it is maybe 1.5 times longer than Python, but I have multiple classes. Python was just one thing. But they played with at property classes, so they were almost like Java, but more chaotic. I would say from maybe it was Pythonic, but from my Java point of view was not that nice. And the Java solution, I would say, very close to Python. So I have to say, I don't think the modern Python is easy. With all the annotations, what is the properties annotation? They call it annotation. Hopefully, it looks like Java annotation. So I would say it is as complicated or complex as Java, I would say. But sorry, I interrupted you. Okay. BM25 and Cohere was model where I interrupted you. Back to you.
That's okay, no problem. So the BM25 is a re-ranker. So it allows you to actually rank the results to specify what you want to include in your prompt context. And so I created this loop, basically an advanced RAG pipeline, but with the possibility to debug everything. So you could actually see where it's coming from. I even built like a cloud where you could see the vectors in a cloud and then see the distance from each other. So basically having fun with technology, right?
Cool.
And so I made a talk about that. But then
it was ranked the number one. It was this talk? So you delivered one talk?
Yeah, at Devoxx. Well, I did it at Devoxx France, the talk. Then I did a second edition at Vox Days Brussels. And then I did it at Devoxx Poland. And it was ranked, it was top ranked.
Yeah.
So people appreciated it. Because I'm not talking about the sky is blue and the roses are red. I was really talking about all the pitfalls and all the
but pretty cool. As a conference organizer, delivering a talk which is top ranked. So kudos.
Yeah, thank you.
Most of the conference organizers don't even know what Java is, So this is, this is it was not fair. Now it's not fair. So I know Devoxx Poland is not true. Geekon is also not true, but maybe in some German conferences, I would say. So this is I can tell you.
But that's the beauty of organizing a conference. It's not a full-time job. So the time I have left, I'm developing and doing research and development, and then I would love to talk about it as well and share the expertise. Sure. And so the prototype was built. I didn't want to commercialize it or turn it into a service, because once payments or customers are involved, I don't like that anymore. So I basically open sourced it and it's there, right? But with the knowledge that I've built, I've actually then started thinking, okay, I want to have this plugin, because what I was constantly doing is I was copy and pasting parts of my code into ChatGPT. Copying and pasting. And so I said, I need to have a plugin which I can have it in the development environment, but also I'm able to use local models. And so that was my motivation. It was really pure selfish. I wanted to have this for myself. And that basically evolved into Devoxx Genie, which I now use. It's like Meta. The Devoxx Genie is helping me to improve the Devoxx Genie codes. And it's like this iterative.
This is my next question to ask, whether you use AI to develop AI plugin, right? So this is like...
Not in the beginning, but now it does. Now, if I want to add new features, because it's 70,000 tokens, so I can give it to Sonnet and say hey, refactor this or review this part or add this feature, and it does a pretty amazing job. And I think we're getting close to 1,000 users of the plugin now. And I know some people, they're really not allowed to use any cloud models in their company because of privacy. And so with this plugin, you have a local model. And there's plenty of other plugins out there as well. But many of them are, they're focused on VS Code, Visual Studio, not so much on IntelliJ.
Mm-hmm.
And they're often not written in Java. But I was a bit naive. I was hoping, because I've open sourced it, that there would be other people helping and so on. And there's almost zero interest.
I will take a look, because I'm interested to having in Visual Studio Code, actually. Use Visual Studio Code maybe. But I have absolutely no time. But this is why I didn't look too closely at your plugin, because then I would start porting, I said, okay, this is just this, because I'm also interested in it. But it would be actually a great student job, whatever, to port it to Visual Studio Code, right?
Well, there is one guy from Devoxx France team who said, okay, if I have a bit of time in the summer period, I will port it to Visual Studio Code. And I told him, if you're able to do it, you can demo it during the opening keynote. And he was like, okay, now you've...
now I don't like it anymore.
Well, no, hopefully he's now extra motivated to do it. But the problem with Visual Studio Code is that you have to do it in TypeScript.
Yeah,
so
exactly. This is what I'm not that interested in.
Yeah. So it's a rewrite because you can't reuse anything from the Java version. So, but anyway, it's very meta. The plugin is improving its own code. And you go like, wow, this is just.
Yeah, you're excited. I see this. I'm also very excited, but I'm using, I think, the Opus as it came out next day. And I had to use, the US East version. So I was not to use it in Europe. It was last year, I think, before Devoxx. I had no account. It was not possible. And shortly after Devoxx, I got the first, access to the Opus model. And I use it directly and via Bedrock, both. So this is you can use AWS or you can use it directly. So I experimented with both. And the annoying part was that, wait a second, the Opus 3 and 4, they changed the format, right? So the API was changed. So the first one was the unstructured prompt with a new line. And the new one is nicer with the message API where you can send proper JSON. So I'm using this a lot. So I always thought to know how far can I come? Because for me, I had the same questions with MDA. If I generate the code, should I check in the generated code? This was my questions always, Should we just keep the model? Or if we keep both, we have a problem. Because if we do it right, you can run, the MDA, this was the model transformer. This was back then was the name, right? MDA, you have the platform independent model and platform specific model. And the dream was Java.NET and whatever. So this was Java and .NET was the both. I think we had a lot of sessions back then at Devoxx. It would be interesting to rewatch it, right? And the idea would be you have a Jenkins, it reads UML and generates Java, compiles Java and pushes to production. But the Java code is not checked in, And now we have the same situation with the prompt. I would say, okay, the prompt generated some code, but if I check in the code, it's my code, so I take ownership, I do refactoring. Or maybe we are that far that you can only keep the prompt. And then you could regenerate, but this is we are not there yet, and there should be something,
You have to regenerate because the endpoint is that you have the source code, which is the result, and then you can just add other prompts to just make it better.
Yeah, whatever.
And enhance it. You don't need the original prompts anymore because you have the end result. It understands the end result.
It's not GitOps, AIOps. New term.
Yeah. Well, prompt ops, basically.
Prompt ops. The pops.
Too long.
Pops.
Pops.
The pops. Exactly. And pretty cool. So what you did, you have the rec, you have the plugin, and you are using Sonnet, I think, right? In your case.
Now I'm using Sonnet. I mean, I've switched once 3.5 came out from Sonnet. I actually stopped my subscription plan to ChatGPT and switched completely to Claude. And I mean the artifacts, but also the context where you can create a project, link a context which is my full source code, and then you can start doing.
But you start do you test the ChatGPT 4.0?
Yes, I did, but it was not as.
But the context window is larger, I think. I was able to. I played with PDFs, so it accepted larger PDFs than Sonnet 3.5 projects. Yeah. You have to try it. So this is why I keep the subscriptions to 4.0. Because there was no limit in PDFs. In Sonnet 3.5, I hit the limit immediately. In projects, you can submit maybe 2 PDFs and you are done. Yeah. And ChatGPT 4.0 accepted more, and the outcome it understands the PDF, so it's fine for me.
Well, I've basically switched to Claude for now, but if there's going to be a 4.5 or a 5.0 coming out from ChatGPT, you can easily switch back. I mean, you just go with the best model, at least for developers. But yeah, I didn't know that. Well, I'm below 100K tokens, so it would
for yours,
anyway, in GPT 4.0.
So how much you read the entire project, right? With the you can submit you already talk about that. So in your plugin, you submit all the files.
So you do a right click on the project, right click, and then you can do copy to clipboard or copy to window context. If it's copy to clipboard, you basically have your full project based on the directories you want to include, the file types you want to exclude. So you have basically one text file with all the information. And that can then be inserted either in Claude or in ChatGPT, or in the plugin, and then you just stay in the plugin and use the API key.
Super cool. So now the JetBrains folks rejected sponsoring Devoxx, right? With your
luckily,
plugins.
they're still platinum, and I'll probably have even a podcast with them to talk about it. But my plan was really to put pressure on IntelliJ to actually support local models. That was really my intention.
And with what local model you did the best experience? So what do you like the most? Local model?
There's so many coming out every week that I'm switching. I should take my portable and tell you, because
maybe you should have a survey, with the developers, which model is most used or something.
Well, there are models out there which actually show you which ones are the best with certain for certain tasks.
No, I mean which the users of your plugin, which models they prefer. This would be interesting to see.
Well, I was once thinking of it would be really cool to have some analytics.
But this is
analytics, but that's privacy again. So I didn't want to do that.
No, exactly. So maybe you can ask at Twitter, a poll, which model, and they would also promote your projects. Like, okay, if you're using my projects, which local model you prefer the most, and a Twitter poll.
I've got 20 models locally. And I'm just playing, the one I'm playing recently now is DeepSeek Coder version 2.
Okay.
And because it has a large window context.
And you are downloading them from Hugging Face, basically, right?
No, I use Olama.
Okay.
And just pull it from Olama, which it then installs it locally. And so that one, the V2, DeepSeek V2, 16 billion is also very good. The Cogemma is really good.
Hey, wait a second. So you have to run Olama?
Yeah. Yes.
With the invention of Alfonso.
I know. I would be able. I've already thought about that, not only for the model but also for the embedding, because you want to actually have the embedding locally.
Yeah, exactly.
And LangChain4j already has an embedding using ONXX, which is like this
Onyx. Yeah.
But if you have GGUF and you have Java native, then you could include it. And my question was last 2 weeks ago at Devoxx Poland, how big can a plugin be for IntelliJ?
Mm-hmm.
And there was one guy who actually developed Doom, and it was gigabytes. And he said, I was able to have more than a gigabyte plugin, but he didn't try to publish it on the marketplace. Okay. So it is possible that on the marketplace from IntelliJ, they go no, it's just too big.
Okay. Are you aware of JVector?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, it's Jacob as well, right?
This JVector is from Cassandra, guys.
Yeah, but I think it's Jacob that developed it as well. Jake. I mean,
Jake.
Yeah, Jake.
And Jonathan. Jonathan developed JVector, and J Llama was developed by Jake, and both are DataStax or Cassandra developers.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, this is now the thing. Yes. And Jonathan was the CTO of Cassandra, and he just went wild with JVector, which happens to be one of the best vector databases, more scalable database ever. And we had a chat with him, and he said, it is zero chance to do the same with C++ because we are way harder, and it's really, really hard, to manage memory, whatever. And he compared it to a C++ solution and say this is really hard, to do the same. It is possible, but it's a way harder. And they developed the entire thing in Java. But so the cool story is now, so we are pure Java stack. We have pure AI stack in Java, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and so that opens up an enormous range of opportunities. And one of them is definitely included in the plugin. So you don't even need to use an LLM local provider like Olama. But, I accept pull requests. So I will definitely promote, of course, the plugin during the opening keynote. And hopefully some developers will join me because, for me, the plugin is fine as it is today. So I will probably not push it any further because I use it as a tool to be productive for my other projects. So, yeah.
And what's also interesting, Open Rewrite, right?
Yes.
It would be also interesting, to hook it to AI and just let AI to create, the hooks. Also interesting, there's complete different approaches. Like, hey, I don't generate the Java code, but I let AI to generate the transformers where I can apply to Open Rewrite to improve my code because then it's predictable, Then it's a different story. It's absolutely safe because Open Rewrite, there's no hallucinations there. And the transformer generated by AI, you can just reason about that. You can check it in. This will also change the conversation.
Yeah, well, they use now, I think, abstract syntax trees,
Yeah.
which is also something I included in the plugin, where if you turn on the AST feature, it will include the relations of the class that you're looking at into the window context. So, for example, if the class extends another class, it will know, well, in IntelliJ it's called PSI, which is basically a layer on top of AST. And so that way you can create a window context based on the construction and the composition of a class. So if you flag that, it basically includes everything. But the thing that disappears if you have a big window context, because you can just put the whole project in.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of exciting and new things we can try out. And the end result for me is that I'm just more productive.
Yeah. So there was no Devoxx blues this year for you.
No.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just so much fun. And it's also nice, again, like last year, there was the first talk from LangChain4j at Dev Belgium last year. If you look at the project now, it has just exploded.
Yeah.
The original founder, Dimitro, he actually joined Red Hat, the Quarkus team. So he works for them now full time doing LangChain4j.
I didn't know that. So I had the last podcast. We talk about business opportunities, and now he's on Red Hat. I didn't know about that. So I had 2 chats with him already.
Yeah. And that's thanks to Devoxx, because that's where they basically got connected and they started hacking.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this is just beautiful to see. And it's the same with Liz as well. I mean, she's now talking all over the place on LangChain4j and all the goodies. So it's really nice to see these connecting the dots at conferences and how it actually becomes a nice butterfly. Yeah. So exciting times.
Thank you for your time. I will have to reinvite you back and just to talk maybe more in depth about the plugin, just how it was constructed and what happens if you know it. Because if you generate everything from AI, you can say, okay, I just put, this prompt and this came out. It's like, okay, this.
I do know it quite a bit, but it still needs refactoring love. It can always be improved.
Would be interesting to go deep into the plugin. I could take a look at the source code. We can have a chat about this and promote it a bit more. Could be interesting, right?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. But I'm first counting on you to talk about AI at enterprises at Devoxx Belgium.
Yeah, this is why we have to stop here, because I have to submit a CFP,
Please do, and I'll make sure it gets accepted, because I think it's a very interesting subject to talk about.
Where people can find you, and I think it will be sold out Devoxx this year again, right? Is 2 seconds again, or?
Most likely, we now have 3 batches instead of 2, so we have 3 different dates where people can buy tickets.
Okay.
But yeah, last year it was sold out in 2 seconds. I think this year it's probably going to be. I mean, we do start to see the economy slowing down a bit, so maybe it's going to be 5 seconds instead of 2 this year. But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Stefan007. I've even got a Devoxx Genie Twitter handle where I'm posting a bit more technical tweets about the plugin. And of course, on GitHub, you can find the source code, and I do accept pull requests. And if you want to migrate it to Visual Studio Code, you have a guaranteed ticket for Devoxx Belgium to talk about what you've done there. So that's an opportunity for.
And you should also try Visual Studio Code. You know why? Because if you think about this, maybe this is more future. Because why you need all the refactorings if you have AI?
Yeah, but it's also a bit of your own reputation. You just want to have the most. That's the thing. I'm like a bit of a perfectionist, and if you then open source it, you see the flaws. And I'm not an expert developer. I'm just an average developer. But you want to have at least the most beautiful code out there that reflects your reputation. So that's why I still refactor it to make it better and leaner. Okay.
So see you at Devoxx, hopefully.
See you in October, and thank you for this chat.
Yeah, it was really nice. Thank you.
Have a good one.